Hey everyone, Coach Mark here. Before I dive into today's topic, make sure to find me over on Instagram as Coach Mark Estrabio. Also, I offer one-to-one coaching. It's what I do full time, and the odds are very good. I'd love to work with you. With that being said, let's get into it. And in today's video, we're going to be talking about Derek and his recent performance at the Ugly Sweater Classic in the lightweight 181 class. He won the press, the show, and the medley. Now, as far as the events themselves go, the first event was a max axle clean and press, then was a sandbag carry to snowman build, where you have to carry a sandbag, drop it, come back, grab another sandbag, and put it on top of that, hence building a snowman. The sandbags were 300 pounds, 250, and 175 pounds, and you'd have to carry them for 20, 30, and 40 feet respectively. Then a deadlift for max reps at 472 pounds. It was a mammoth bar, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Then a grip medley of a rope-handled kettlebell, an arm-over-arm sled pull, and then a reverse sled pull with the rolling handles. And then last but not least, with a Thor's hammer front hold. Now that we know the show, let's talk a little bit about our starting point with the athlete himself. Derek, highly competitive at the regional level. He's very technical, very explosive, very dynamic. Static strength is definitely an area of opportunity for us in terms of, leveling him up. Recently, he finished 7th place at the United States Strongman National Championship, so we're really proud of him. So needless to say, he's been having a really good training year. Now that being said, we know he's very good at moving events. However, the deadlift does lag behind a little bit, and that's an area we have been making strides in. He recently pulled 600 on both a deadlift bar and an axle. Overall, Derek is very compliant, very communicative, which, as a coach, that makes him a great athlete. And the athletes who tend to be very compliant and communicative are the ones who tend to get the best results. Case in point, like Derek. Now, Derek did not have full equipment access leading into this competition. Regardless, we found ways to make it work. And we had 12 weeks of full prep to do this. And we also decided he was going to learn how to do the split jerk leading into the show to help maximize his overhead potential. Also, I just realized that I have my head on the wrong part of the slide, but you know what, that's okay, we're just going to keep rolling. Now, in terms of how we had been training prior to Ugly Sweater, we've been running a pretty bog standard conjugate way of training, 3-week waves, 2 upper, 2 lower. You have your intensive and developmental days, which are my analogs for max effort and dynamic effort days. Main difference being that we might not necessarily be doing speed work, and we might not necessarily be doing 1-rep maxes. Regardless, pretty standard approach we've been training with. And then leading into the show, what we did is we switched over to more of a block style approach. And the reason why we do a block style approach in general, leading into a strongman show, is now specificity needs to be a lot higher. In the off season, your training should look more different than your competition training. That way you're just developing a more well-rounded overall you, and then when it comes time to compete, you're essentially forcing yourself to adapt to the demands of the show. And we did that by training the axle 2 times a week. The deadlift, we actually did a lot more of a foundational approach. We used a lot of controlled eccentrics as well as pauses in 1.5 reps, specifically to get Derek ready to handle the whip present in a mammoth bar. If you've never pulled on one of those, they're almost like pulling on a pool noodle. They can really rip you out of position. The last thing we needed was him getting jerked out of position, straining his low back, and then he's cooked for the rest of the show. Now, let's talk a bit about how we got Derek to learn how to split jerk. The big thing here is we spent a lot of time on skill work, paused work in the various positions. Derek was already a very strong push presser, so what we needed to do was develop him in such a way that the strength he developed push pressing would transfer over to the split jerk. And that involved skill, because skill is the bottleneck when it comes to these more technical Olympic style movements. So what we would do is on one day, for example, you'll see we have it on screen right now, we do push press and then move into split jerk and then some strict pressing thereafter. Then on the second day, what we would do is split jerk, where we'd have a 2-second pause in the dip drive as well as a 2-second pause in the recovery phase, just getting him used to those new positions. That way, again, we can use the strength he has to really build a higher ceiling of potential for him in the axle lift. We also did some 50-degree incline pressing because that's just a good catch-all upper body developer for the strongman athlete. Now, in terms of his accessories on these days, the first day we did a lot of shoulder stability work, so think stuff like powwow raises, I's, Y's, and T's, band pull-aparts, face pulls. We often integrated in pauses, pretty high reps, really just pumping and burning the heck out of his rear delts. You know, you'll notice with people when they do split jerk, especially when they're newer to it, they're a little wobbly over the top, so a stronger, more stable upper back rear delt complex is going to be so very important. And then on the second day, we mainly spammed stuff like floor press and tricep work just to build bigger, more powerful triceps. Now, when it came time to training for the deadlift, as I said before, our big concern with Derek was just making sure that he didn't get ripped out of position due to the excessive whip that you would find on a mammoth bar if you're not used to it. So we made use of 1.5 reps, pause reps, as well as slow eccentrics, as it is my opinion that it's important to train the eccentric on the deadlift, especially for the strongman athlete, because that helps you learn how to cycle reps more efficiently. Even though you do generally have to pause a rep at the bottom in the deadlift 4 reps, think of it much like the bench press for the power lifter. You will almost always bench more coming down from the rack, pausing on the chest, then coming all the way up, versus doing a true dead bench where the bar starts on the pins or on your chest and then all the way up, right? So learning how to store a bit of that stretch reflex makes you more efficient has been my experience and observation as a coach. And then in addition to the deadlift, we do some glute ham developer back extensions, especially with a rounded back, and then movements such as a wood chopper and Cossack squats just to help with the internal rotation of the hip, keep him from feeling so beat up because, well, show prep can be very challenging. Now, in terms of how we trained the events themselves, if you will, the more dynamic events, right? The sandbags, it wasn't particularly complicated as Derek did have access to the necessary sandbag weights. What we do early on is we did things such as complexes where he'd pick, extend, pick, and then run with a given weight of the bag, maybe do that with the 2 lighter bags, and then do a full run with all 3 sandbags. And then later in preparation, what we did is we did time domain work. For example, we might set a timer for 6 total rounds at the top of every 2 minutes, so 12 minutes total. You'd run 40 feet with a bag, do each bag 2 times, and then do the 300 at the very end of it. The idea with the time domain work for moving events is it just keeps the session moving at a brisk pace, especially with these bigger strongman shows. Usually you don't have much time to warm up. I know at USS Nast, Derek actually did not get to warm up on the yoke, for example, so it's important to be able to warm up quickly, assuming you even do get some warm-up opportunities. On the hammer hold, we simply trained this after his second overhead session with the axle. And then the grip medley, what we did here is we relied on 2 main movements. The first one was taking the rope handles, the monkey grips, and putting them on his rower, and he would just do some rowing in one of his sessions. And then the other one was doing a barbell side bend, which is exactly what it sounds like, just taking a barbell, holding it in the middle where the knurling is, and doing some side bends. We also splashed in some fat grip dumbbell walking lunges. Again, these 3 exercises all just helped in building both grip strength as well as grip endurance for that particular event series. Quick, get ready to screenshot this. It's a sample week of training, so this is what a week of training looked like for Derek as we prepped for the competition. You'll see day 1, we just worked his axle. It's a little strict log, some accessory work. Day 2 was the deadlift training as well as the rower with the monkey grips. Day 3 was our second pressing session, and the big difference here on the second pressing day is we're working in the pauses in various positions, and then we also did some workup sets on a 50-degree incline press, some accessories thereafter, mainly targeting the triceps, and we capped off that day with front hold training. And then the 4th day is our moving event training day, and what you'll notice here is we started off with deadlift stance box squats. Using the SSB. I think this is one of the best all-around movements for a strongman athlete to be doing, especially in prep for a show that doesn't have a squat event, but is going to be working your legs quite a bit, especially if there's a deadlift, for example. Reason being is it's going to help build your deadlift leg drive, but it doesn't make too much inroads in terms of recovery, especially against your low back and hips. So just slots in very well there. Then we'd follow that up with some sandbag rows because that helped warm Derek up for the carrying work. And then we just topped off with some grip work there using the barbell side bends and dumbbell walking lunges. And we made sure to do the lunges after the carrying medley specifically because we didn't want to cook his legs and grip going into the carry series. So overall, nothing particularly complicated, but that's really what good training is it's not overly complicated, but it makes sense and it progresses over time. Now, how did this all go? Pretty gosh darn well, in my opinion. First off, on the axle, Derek hit 235. That being said, he did not need to go any heavier. Second place, I believe, topped out at 215. In training, Derek had hit a 260. Day of, I think he would have been good for 265, maybe even 285. But regardless, he got the event win. Second event was the sandbag series. He did it in 30.43 seconds. First place. The deadlift, he got 9 reps at 472, tied for first place. Now, the grip medley deserves special mention here because he did win the grip medley, but he not only won it for his division, but he won it for all men's weight classes. So he absolutely smoked that event. And remember, this was the one we didn't really have the gear for. And then last but not least was the front hammer hold, and I didn't note it there, but he won that one as well. So needless to say, he had one hell of a performance out there at the Ugly Sweater. Very proud of him. With that all being said, we're now Finally, hopefully, moving into an off-season for Derek. For those of you who don't know, I've been prepping him for a show almost non-stop since we started working together. And it's about time that he take a little time away from the heavy stuff. We've actually been thinking about feeding him a little bit more, moving into more of a body man, strong builder, strong man, bodybuilding, whatever you want to call it, kind of phase. This week was no lifting. We just wanted him to take some time off and recover. As far as our big 3 takeaways we took from this preparation phase, number 1, skill development is king. Practicing the positions you're weak in a new movement will help you get better at it. If you're weak in the recovery phase on a push jerk, spend more time in the recovery phase. If your dip and drive is off, spend more time practicing your dip. Do a 3-count eccentric. Spend some time at the pause at the bottom of your dip. Wherever your technical deficiencies show up, just spend time there. Rather than cueing yourself, think about constraints. Second, controlled eccentrics on the deadlift work. They are helpful. They're very beneficial for the strongman athlete, or even if you're just trying to build a stronger posterior chain, a superior posterior. If you're doing more than 3 reps at a time, consider controlling the weight coming down. We're not talking a 10 count, but just think that you're not cracking the kitchen tile, right? If you're deadlifting in a kitchen, for example. And then last but not least, when it comes to prepping for a strongman competition, in the off season, you're building the best possible you. And then when it comes time to compete, rather than thinking about you are trying to force yourself to adapt to the show because the show dictates whether or not you are successful. So that about wraps up how I went about building Derek up to be ready for the Ugly Sweater Classic. Needless to say, things turned over really nicely. Make sure to leave him a congratulations down in the comment section because he's probably going to wind up seeing this video. Hope you folks found this one useful. And if you have any questions, please let me know. I love comments and questions. That way I can answer them, maybe even turn them into full-fledged videos. And until next time, I'll see you folks in the next video. You have a great one.